Why do certain people make others uneasy without ever raising their voice, without explaining themselves, without trying? Think about the last time someone's mere presence shifted the mood in the room. No threats, no drama, just a quiet force that made weaker people hesitate, overthink, pull back. If you've ever felt overlooked, talked over, or subtly disrespected, this isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's not your personality. It's behavior, silent behavior. And deep down, you already feel it. You sense there's another way to move through the world. A way that doesn't require proving yourself or fighting for attention. A way that makes people treat you differently without you asking. That feeling you carry, the frustration, the exhaustion of reacting, explaining, justifying, is telling you something important. You're tired of being pulled into other people's chaos. You're tired of giving emotional energy to people who haven't earned it. You want respect that doesn't need to be negotiated. And there is a way out of that cycle. Here's the truth most people never hear. Weak people are not threatened by strength the way movies show it. They're not afraid of loud confidence or aggressive dominance. They're afraid of what they can't read. They're afraid of what they can't control. They're afraid of silence that doesn't need their approval. Silence creates space. And in that space, their insecurities get loud. When you stop reacting the way they expect, their scripts collapse. When you don't rush to explain yourself, they start questioning themselves. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about reclaiming control over your emotional presence. Because the moment you stop giving automatic reactions, you stop being predictable. And predictability is the oxygen weak people rely on. You've probably noticed how some people seem to feed on reactions. They push buttons. They test boundaries. They provoke subtly or openly. Not because they're confident, but because they need confirmation that they still matter. When you engage emotionally every time, you reward that behavior. When you don't, something shifts. They feel it immediately. A quiet discomfort creeps in. Not because you attacked them, but because you didn't. Silence forces reflection. And reflection is dangerous for people who avoid their own weakness. This is where power actually begins. Not in what you say, but in what you withhold. Your attention, your emotional energy, your explanations. When you stop scattering these everywhere, they gain weight. You stop being accessible to manipulation. You stop being easy to read. And slowly, without any announcement, your presence changes. People start watching you more closely. They start measuring their words. They start wondering what you're thinking. That curiosity isn't admiration yet. It's fear mixed with respect. Fear of misstepping. Fear of losing access. Fear of not knowing where they stand with you. And here's the part that matters most. This isn't about them. It's about you finally feeling grounded, calm, unrushed. You no longer carry conversations that drain you. You no longer feel the need to defend your worth. Silence becomes a filter. It keeps noise out and clarity in. The more you practice it, the more you realize how much power you were giving away without noticing. Power doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from mastering yourself. From choosing when to engage and when to remain still. From understanding that not every moment deserves your voice. If you stay with this idea, really let it sink in, you'll start to feel a shift already. A subtle sense of control returning. Not the kind that intimidates loudly, but the kind that settles deep in your posture, your gaze, your timing. This is the beginning of a different way of being. One where you don't chase respect. You create an environment where it naturally forms around you. And once that happens, everything changes. That shift you feel right now is not imaginary. It's your nervous system recognizing a new position. You're no longer leaning forward, searching for validation. You're standing still, letting the world adjust to you. And here's where the pressure starts to rise. Because the moment you stop reacting automatically, people around you begin to feel exposed. Weak people especially. They live by reading others, feeding off emotional cues, predicting reactions so they can stay one step ahead. When you remove those cues, you remove their safety net. Confusion sets in, tension follows, not because you did something aggressive, but because you didn't do what was expected. This is where most people fail. They feel the tension and rush to fill it. They talk more, explain more, soften themselves. They retreat back into comfort. But if you hold steady, something powerful happens. Silence starts working for you. It magnifies your presence. It forces others to project their own fears onto you. And people fear what they project onto. You become a mirror they don't want to look into. Now the stakes are higher, because once you've tasted this control, you can't unsee how often you used to give it away. Every unnecessary apology, Every over-explanation, every emotional reaction that wasn't aligned with who you want to be. Weak people count on those moments. They rely on them to feel superior, to feel safe, to feel relevant. When you stop supplying that energy, their behavior changes. Some become nervous, some become hostile, some suddenly become overly polite. All of it is information, and information is power. This is where belief comes in. You have to believe that you don't need to prove yourself in real time, that your RTH doesn't depend on immediate understanding, that silence doesn't make you invisible, it makes you solid. Most people are afraid of this phase because it feels lonely at first. You're no longer blending in. You're no longer emotionally available to everyone. But that loneliness is temporary. It's the space where your identity recalibrates, where you decide who gets access and who doesn't. And once that line is drawn, urgency appears. Because time and energy are finite. You can't afford to keep reacting like the old version of you. You can't afford to keep letting weaker dynamics dictate your emotional state. Every moment you hesitate, the old patterns try to pull you back. They whisper that silence is risky, that distance is rude, that calm is weakness. But that's the conditioning talking. The truth is the opposite. Calm is threatening to those who need chaos. Distance is powerful to those who cling. Silence is heavy to those who are hollow. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming intentional, choosing when to speak, choosing when to engage, choosing when to walk away without explanation. That choice alone separates you from most people. And separation creates elevation. People start to feel it before they understand it. They sense a boundary they didn't place, a standard they didn't set. And standards without words are the hardest to challenge. You are not here to dominate. You are here to stabilize, to be unmovable, to become someone whose presence changes the temperature of the room simply by existing in it. That kind of presence isn't built overnight. It's built every time you pause instead of reacting. Every time you let silence do the talking. Every time you choose control over comfort. Right now, this is a decision point. Not a dramatic one, a quiet one. You either go back to the old rhythm, or you stay here and let this new one take shape. One choice keeps you familiar. The other makes you formidable. And once you commit, once you truly stop feeding weak dynamics, something irreversible happens. You don't chase respect anymore. You don't demand it. You embody it. And the world, whether it likes it or not, responds. Once respect begins responding to you, the world stops feeling random. Patterns emerge. You notice how quickly people reveal themselves when they realize they can't move you. Some test harder, some retreat, some suddenly seek your approval. None of this is accidental. It's the natural reaction to someone who has stopped leaking energy. And now the responsibility increases. Because power without awareness turns into arrogance. But power with discipline turns into influence. This is where most people get uncomfortable. Not because it's difficult, but because it's quiet. There's no applause here, no instant feedback, just a steady inner alignment. You're no longer acting for reactions, you're acting from values. And values don't beg, they don't argue, they don't chase, they stand. Weak people feel this like a pressure on their chest. They don't know how to negotiate with someone who isn't emotionally available on demand. You'll start to see how much noise was never meant for you. Opinions, judgments, subtle provocations. They flow past now, not because you're above them, but because you're grounded. And grounding creates gravity. People either orbit it or fall away. Both outcomes are wins. Because clarity always costs something. It costs illusions. It costs familiar chaos. It costs the comfort of being liked by everyone. But what it gives back is worth more than approval. It gives you direction. Now the urgency sharpens. Because once you know this, going back feels like betrayal. You can't unknow how silence protects you, how restraint sharpens you, how selective engagement preserves you, ever. Each time you're tempted to explain yourself to someone who hasn't earned context, pause. That pause is where strength lives. Every time you feel pulled into drama that doesn't build you, step back. That step is where dignity forms. These moments seem small. They're not. They compound. This is how a presence is built. Not through force, through consistency, through showing the same calm under pressure, through not changing who you are just to manage someone else's emotions. Weak people adapt to control. Strong people adapt to truth. And truth doesn't rush. It doesn't bend. It doesn't perform. It simply is. When you embody that, people feel it in their body before they understand it in their mind. There will be moments when doubt creeps in. when silence feels heavy, when you wonder if you should say more, soften more, give more. That's the old conditioning trying to reclaim space. Don't fight it, observe it, let it pass. Strength isn't the absence of doubt. It's the refusal to let doubt dictate behavior. Every time you choose alignment over impulse, you reinforce a new identity, one that doesn't need to announce itself, and something else begins to happen. You start attracting different energy. Conversations deepen, interactions slow down. People speak more carefully around you, not because they fear you as a person, but because they respect the boundary you carry. Boundaries without words are the strongest kind. They can't be argued with. They can't be negotiated. They can only be respected or avoided. This is bigger than social dynamics. This is about becoming someone you trust, someone who doesn't abandon themselves under pressure, someone who doesn't trade peace for temporary approval. When you reach that point, fear loses its grip on you. Not just the fear of others, but the fear inside. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of being alone. The fear of standing firm. Those fears shrink when you stop feeding them with reaction. You're not meant to be loud to be powerful. You're meant to be clear. Clear in your choices. Clear in your standards. Clear in your silence. And clarity has weight. It shapes how people treat you without you asking. It reshapes how you see yourself without you forcing it. This is the moment where intention becomes action. Where awareness turns into discipline. Not tomorrow. Not when it's convenient. Now. Hold your ground. Guard your energy. Let silence do its work. Because the more you embody this way of being, the less you need to convince anyone of anything. Your presence becomes the message. And once that happens, nothing about your life stays small again. When presence becomes your language, excuses lose their power over you. You stop negotiating with noise. You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. And this is where the path narrows. Because not everyone can walk with you here. Some will try to pull you back into explanation. Others will test you with pressure. This is the final resistance of weak dynamics fighting to survive. Stay steady. This resistance is proof that something real is happening. The moment you refuse to collapse under expectation, your internal posture changes. Your breath slows. Your movements sharpen. You no longer rush to fill space. Space works for you now. It amplifies intention. It turns restraint into authority. People feel it as certainty, and certainty unsettles those who live in doubt. They can sense that you are no longer available for manipulation, only for alignment. This is where commitment matters, not the loud kind, the quiet kind that shows up in how you respond to tension, in how you delay reaction, and how you choose silence over spectacle. Weak people crave emotional supply. When it dries up, they spiral. When you remain grounded, they project. Their fear has nowhere to go but outward. You become the reference point they can't ignore. Understand this clearly. You are not trying to be intimidating. You are becoming undeniable. Intimidation relies on fear. Undeniable presence relies on truth. Truth doesn't argue. It doesn't perform. It doesn't rush. It stands firm and lets reality adjust around it. When you embody that, people either rise to meet you or remove themselves. Both outcomes protect your energy. Now the stakes sharpen further. Because once you carry this presence, your choices echo longer. You can't afford careless reactions. You can't afford emotional leaks. Every response either reinforces your standard or erodes it. Discipline becomes freedom here, not restriction. Freedom from chaos, freedom from regret, freedom from being pulled into smallness by people who fear their own reflection. This is where belief turns into responsibility. You are responsible for the tone you set, for the boundaries you enforce without words, for the calm you bring into unstable environments. When you enter a room now, you don't announce yourself. You align yourself. Alignment is felt instantly. It changes how people speak, how they move, how they measure themselves. This is influence without effort. There will be moments when silence feels heavy with expectation. Let it be heavy. Weight is what gives silence authority. When you resist the urge to explain, you teach others how to approach you. When you don't rush to comfort insecurity, you teach others to self-regulate. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. And clarity is a gift, even when it's uncomfortable. As this becomes your baseline, fear loses access to you. Not just the fear of others, but the fear of losing approval. You stop trading your center for acceptance. You stop performing versions of yourself that don't fit anymore. What remains is solid, grounded, unmovable. That Solidity is rare, and rarity commands respect without asking for it. This path is not dramatic, it is deliberate, built in small decisions repeated daily. Choosing restraint over reaction, choosing presence over noise, choosing silence when words will weaken the moment. Each choice compounds. Over time, your presence becomes unmistakable. People feel it before you speak. They sense it in how you listen, in how you pause, in how you leave. This is the point where life expands, not outwardly at first, but inwardly. You trust yourself. You move with intention. You stop chasing outcomes and start embodying standards. The world responds to standards. It bends to them. And once you live this way, there is no return to the old version. That version needed permission. This one does not. Hold this line. Protect this state. Let silence remain your ally. Let restraint sharpen your edge. Let presence become your signature. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be aligned with yourself. And when that alignment is complete, weak people will feel it immediately. Not as hatred, not as rivalry, as fear. Because nothing threatens weakness more than quiet, unshakable strength. Every moment you choose presence over reaction, you claim power quietly but unmistakably. Weak people notice it immediately. They can feel it in their chest, a tension they can't explain. It unsettles them because it reflects a reality they can't manipulate. They rely on predictable reactions. They need validation from others to feel safe. When you stop giving them what they crave, they begin to unravel, not violently, but internally in subtle ways. Their discomfort becomes your signal. Their hesitation becomes your leverage. And this is the stage where you realize how much energy you have been surrendering without thought, how much influence you've allowed others to hold over your emotions, your decisions, your presence. The truth is, silence is your strongest weapon. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of restraint, of control, of measured response. When you let the world speak itself while you remain grounded, people reveal themselves. Weakness is exposed. Insecurity becomes visible. Their power shrinks in the light of your calm. And the more you embody this, the less others' judgments affect you. You stop reacting to their chaos because your center has shifted. You become a point of stability in a sea of instability. And stability, more than words or aggression, commands attention. The stakes grow higher because once you taste this, going back becomes unbearable. Every old habit of over-explaining, over-apologizing, overreacting begins to feel like self-betrayal. You can no longer tolerate giving your energy to those who don't deserve it. Every interaction becomes a choice, to protect your presence or to dilute it. This urgency, this pressure, is not a threat. It's clarity. It tells you what matters. It shows you where your standards must hold firm. Every time you pause, every time you withhold reaction, every time you resist the pull of old patterns, you reinforce a new identity. One that doesn't bend for fear, one that doesn't perform for approval, one that commands respect simply by existing. And as this identity strengthens, fear becomes visible in ways you never saw before. People hesitate. They measure themselves before they speak. They calculate moves they once executed without thought. This isn't intimidation through force. This is influence through presence. Every subtle shift in their behavior is evidence that your quiet power is real. It is undeniable. And the more you trust this process, the stronger your internal gravity becomes. People adjust around you without realizing why. And that adjustment is proof that your choice is matter. Your silence, your measured calm, your restraint, these are forces far greater than words. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when the old reflexes demand a response. When your mind whispers that you should explain, defend, justify. This is the test. Every time you resist it, you deepen your authority. Every time you allow stillness to guide you, you solidify your influence. Weak people hate this, not because they understand it consciously, but because instinctively they know it threatens everything they rely on: predictability, control, emotional supply. And that is exactly why you must continue. Because your growth will always feel uncomfortable to those who cling to their own weakness. The deeper you go into this presence, the less you care about superficial outcomes. Approval loses importance. Drama loses power. Conflict becomes background noise. You are no longer pulled by reaction. You are pulled by alignment. And that alignment changes everything. Conversations, relationships, even the way people perceive you shifts. You become someone who is not just respected, but felt. Your influence radiates quietly, efficiently, irreversibly. You are the standard, the measure, the silent force that others cannot manipulate. Now, the final truth crystallizes. Power is not taken, it is embodied. It is earned through deliberate action, disciplined silence, and unwavering presence. Once you step into that, once you refuse to react unnecessarily, once you let the world adjust to your calm instead of chasing chaos, you transform. You do not need to dominate. You do not need to argue. You simply exist with intention, and everything around you begins to bend to that truth. Weakness fears it, yes, but that fear is recognition. It is validation. It is proof that you have arrived at a place few ever reach. A place of quiet, unstoppable strength, the moment you realize that your presence alone carries weight. Everything changes. You no longer chase validation. You no longer react to noise. Every word you speak, every pause you take becomes deliberate. Weak people notice it immediately. They sense the shift because it exposes what they lack. Their attempts to provoke, to manipulate, to control, they fail. You are no longer available for their scripts. You are no longer playing by their rules. And that failure unsettles them at the core. It creates tension they cannot dismiss. It makes them question every assumption they've ever made about influence, control, and power. That tension is your ally. That tension proves you are moving in a space most people never enter. Silence becomes your strategy, not absence, not indifference, but intentional stillness. It communicates strength without volume. It communicates authority without announcement. And the beauty is that weak people can feel it long before they understand it. They lean back in anticipation, unsure how to engage. Every subtle gesture, every measured breath, every calm look magnifies the impact of your presence. They are forced to reflect, to hesitate, to respect limits they cannot challenge. This is how influence is built. Not through argument, not through aggression, through unshakable alignment with yourself. But make no mistake, the path demands discipline. You will face moments when old reflexes tempt you to over-explain, to appease, to justify. That is the moment that defines you. Every time you resist the pull, every time you choose calm over reaction, you reinforce a stronger version of yourself. Your identity becomes unassailable. Weak people will feel the weight of that identity in ways that are undeniable. They will sense control slipping from their grasp. They will scramble to regain it, often without realizing why. And every time they fail, your presence grows. Heavier, more commanding, more untouchable. The urgency of this cannot be ignored. Time, energy, attention, they are finite. Every second spent reacting to chaos is energy surrendered. Every minute spent defending your worth unnecessarily is a minute stolen from growth. You must protect your center. You must enforce boundaries without words. You must embody the version of yourself that does not bend for approval or permission. Every choice reinforces the standard you live by, and the higher the standard, the greater the shift in how the world responds to you. Silence, discipline, intentionality. These are not optional. They are your tools. They are your shield. They are your power. And as this presence crystallizes, something extraordinary happens. People start to orbit your energy without even realizing it. Conversations change tone. Requests come differently. Tension dissipates before it rises. Even those who once sought to destabilize you now measure themselves carefully. You become a point of gravity, a reference that others unconsciously align with. And that alignment is irreversible. It is recognition. It is fear. It is respect. It is the proof that you have mastered the quiet art of influence. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when silence feels heavy, when you wonder if you should justify yourself, soften your stance, break the pause. These are tests, not setbacks. Every test is an opportunity to strengthen your internal command. Every moment you resist is a moment that builds the muscle of unshakable presence. Weakness fears it, instability fears it, but strength thrives on it. This is how leaders are forged, not in noise, not in spectacle, but in deliberate control over self, over attention, over reaction. And as you move forward, you will notice a shift within yourself. Approval no longer dictates your worth. Chaos no longer shakes your core. Conflict no longer drags you into reaction. You operate from alignment, from truth, from presence. And this clarity radiates outward. The world adjusts around you because your standard cannot be ignored. You are not here to convince anyone of your power. You simply inhabit it. And the effects ripple through every interaction, every environment, every connection you touch. The power you wield now is quiet, relentless, inevitable. It is cultivated in every pause, every measured response, every refusal to be pulled into unnecessary drama. Weakness fears it because it cannot mimic it. Chaos fears it because it cannot unsettle it. But those who recognize it, those who align with it, will respect it. And that is the ultimate victory.